Welcome to the Montclair Literary Festival. My name is Ghana, and I have to insert several roles here: panel facilitator, volunteer, poet. Okay, all three of those. Got it? All right. At Succeed Together, the nonprofit that created and runs the Montclair Literary Festival. Succeed Together provides low-cost tutoring and educational workshops in Essex County for students to help narrow the achievement gap through leveling the playing field. There's a lot of talk about growing inequity in our country. Still, where wealth and poverty live side by side, and it is no surprise that we have a huge achievement gap in our schools. Through empathy and the belief in the power of learning, Succeed Together is making a significant impact. In our one-on-one tutoring on the third floor of the Montclair Library, we see miracles happen as children develop self-esteem and their grades rise. Come and see us in action. I guarantee that your heart will be lifted with hope. We hope that you will support our mission and this festival by making a donation, hint, hint, that means money, when you leave here today. You can make a cash donation in the buckets or stop by the Succeed Together table in the lobby of the First Congregational Church, that's right across the street right here, to donate by check or credit card or to find out more about our work. Most events at the Literary Festival are free thanks to our sponsors and event partners. We'd like to thank Montclair State University, NJEA, the Montclair Public Library, Montclair Art Museum, Watchung Booksellers, the First Congregational Church, and all the local people, organizations, and businesses who have donated and volunteered. Okay, so this is the part where it says, introduce the moderator. Hi! So that's how we're gonna go today. So since I'm doing double duty today, I want to do it a little fun and a little interactive, so I hope my panelists are ready. I'm going to have them introduce themselves, and you're going to tell your name, your book or play, the one person that inspired you to write, and the one person that inspires you or who you think of as like your favorite activist, the person that inspires the things that you think about in the world, okay? So, ready? All right. Panelists, introduce yourselves. We'll start with Tanya.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Tanya Manning-Yarde, and the name of my book is Every Watering Word. It's a collection of poetry. It is my first publication. I'm so a little nervous. Thank you. One of the poets that has truly inspired me is actually a peer of mine. Her name is Carla Cherry. We've been friends together for the past 40 years. She has just published her third book of poetry, and she also has published several poems in a variety of anthologies. Why I look up to her is, for one, she's a veteran high school English teacher in New York City. She's going now over 20 years. And she situates her classroom as a place for citizenship. So it's not a matter of just covering literature or learning basic grammar. She places it as a place for social action, activism, and she's one of the people that I truly look up to. Aside from the fact we've been friends for over 40 years. She's a phenomenal person. An activist that I look up to would actually be my mother. She's deceased now, but she was a person who tried to make avenues and possibilities for a variety of people. And she would not be somebody that you would see on the front line with her name up in lights, but somebody who would work behind the scenes with us in terms of the neighborhood kids to make a difference.
My name is Teka Lark. My book is Queen of Inglewood. It's poetry, satirical, dramatic monologue. The person who has inspired me in regards to poetry is Wanda Coleman. She's an LA poet. Pretty much when you see spoken word poetry, the people are copying Wanda Coleman. Wanda Coleman was kind of the originator of spoken word poetry. So when you see kind of like, Deaf Poetry Jam, when you see people doing spoken word, she was kind of one of the first performance poets. But not only that, she kind of took on a system. She was from Watts. She was working class, and she did not fit the mold. Even within the African American community in Los Angeles, she did not fit the mold. She was on her own channel. And that's what I really liked about her. She was an outlaw poet, and an outlaw activist, even though her activism was poetry. For an activist, civil rights, Ida B. Wells, I am a journalist. I'm a writer. I try to tell people's stories using the written word. My activism is based in journalism, it's based in media. Ida B. Wells documented the lynching of African Americans during the turn of the century and was able to kind of showcase what was happening to African American people. While my writing is not the same as necessarily the same writing style as Wanda Coleman, or even I'm not writing about the exact same topics with Ida B. Wells, those two women really inspired me to just, be true to myself, to be, to remember the community, and that one person can help to make a difference. But also, too, one person with the support of the community can make a difference.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Elijah Brown. If you can't hear me, and if I can't speak up, hopefully I will speak up enough for everyone to hear me, but hopefully no one knows my doctor or are friends on any social medias with my doctor, because they probably wouldn't want me here. Didn't want to not be here. But I have flu-like symptoms. I don't have the flu.
Okay, I was gonna say.
70.
You have the flu, we're okay with you leaving right now. Yeah,
I
so
wouldn't be
we'll be
here
okay.
if I had,
Okay, good, all right,
But,
carry
yeah.
on.
Yeah, all right, so as far as writing, I've started writing in about middle school. Of course, you start with your assignments. But the person that actually had me writing was my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was about 7 years old. And that type of relationship is why I wrote. I really wasn't a speaker. I didn't want to speak to anyone, and I would write my dad these letters because he lived in California. Of course, I was in Jersey, so that was my way of letting him know how I felt. But the play, I seen that you had the play up, and I was like, why would you put the play up as poetry? But I know the play has poetry in it, so Man Up the Play is a two-man play that myself and my partner, Jamal J. Skills Hennett, we both wrote, produced it, and have been performing this production for about 6 years, traveling around the world. It's a play that speaks of a teacher and a student and their roles in shaping today's young men, or boys into men. It's 6 different characters. About two of us play 6 different characters. And the theme of it is what makes a man a man. Some of the roles that we touch have gone into how mental illness affects how to assist someone with mental illness. Also, bullying, we speak of a lot of different things, even what happens in the streets and how it affects the classroom before the student gets there. It's a lot, but poetry itself has been a monarchy for all of my writing. I'm published with 4 books. I'm releasing my 5th book at the end of May, which is my 10-year anniversary of my first book, Missing Pages Out of My Life. In that book, I've sold over 10,000 copies up to date, and I wrote that book 10 years ago. So as far as a writer, I really flourished. And one of my other the people who have allowed me to write now, Gordon Parks, I'm sure you guys know a lot of his work. I use a lot of his photographs to assist my students to write. I'm also an educator. I've been teaching English for the past 6 years, except this year I've changed positions from teaching to being a school operations assistant, where I assist running the building. So, but nonetheless, I still run the poetry club at the high school I teach at, well, I work at, so I'm still involved with the students to write, and I'm privileged to be on this panel. Thank you.
For coming, even though you weren't feeling your best. You sure you don't have the flu?
I'm sure.
Okay, good. I'm happy to hear that. And I'm sure that you're happy to
I have
hear
a good
it.
immune system.
Okay,
Otherwise,
good.
I don't
All
get
right.
That's good.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Pamela Hughes. My book is called Meadowland, Take My Hand. I'm also an educator, and basically the Meadowlands Take My Hand is an exploration a narrative exploration of what I call the toxic and the playful. So it is about a journey through the Meadowlands, and I'm sure you're all aware that our Meadowlands is very compromised. There are like landfills there. So in my exploration of it, I saw the juxtaposition that is often part of New Jersey, which is the beauty and the ugly. And so, and also in bringing my own children into the Meadowlands and my classes, because I'm an educator, it helps them to embrace nature, to find a connection to it that they may not have had, and in doing so, they're able to, in some ways, become activists themselves to support what we all need, a place to live. So the book really came out of just being in the Meadowlands, came out of a place. I actually teach down in Bergen Community College, and the Meadowlands surrounds us. So one of my students said, why do we want to keep a swamp? Why don't we just get rid of it and just have all houses put here? So that made me sort of realize that we have to just open up the world of environment to students so they can see it differently and embrace it. And in doing so, having that social awareness helps them to just maybe change the ways they may interact with it. For example, sometimes I've seen students just take all of their Burger King bag and just throw it right out the window of the car. So I feel like in giving this voice or giving this connection to nature, it helps to change things for our students. One of my students actually came into my class and she said there's a turtle that's just stuck in the parking lot after we had done some environmental club work together. So we just went on a rescue and ended up saving the turtle that was just hanging out by itself. So it's nice to see, I guess, social awareness in action with the students. Some of my influences, first Emily Dickinson, and then June Jordan, who wrote a book called Poetry for the People. Anybody ever hear of that book? A really great book. Many of the poems written by students. So the activist voice is just, and again, playfulness. Playfulness seems to be a theme that I think that the students like in allowing play and learning to merge together. It just helps them to open up their consciousness, their minds, and even laugh and change. That's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so you see we have a very diverse panel here today. We're going to hear each of them read from their works, so that will be coming up very soon. I just want to touch on for a minute the theme of today, poetry as resistance. So when I was approached by the Montclair Literary Festival to put together this panel, they said, you know, we want to do something with how people use poetry in social justice and different issues. So I came up with 4 people I felt represented different thoughts, because there's not just one. When you say social activism or social justice, what are you talking about? It could be a myriad of things. So we're going to be touching on what really touches these particular writers' hearts. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to start off with something that I wrote that touches my heart. I have been writing formally since I was 8 years old. Had my first published book at 8. Grew up in Montclair, from the Montclair public school systems. Moved to New York and did the whole beatnik poetry, Russell Simmons Def Jam comedy type life in New York. Married a musician, gave birth to artists and musicians, I mean, literally. My mother is a journalist and a writer, published author. She wrote an encyclopedia on the Harlem Renaissance, and my father is a painter. So I had no choice, right? I had absolutely no choice. And even though my father didn't live in my house, he was a Black Panther. And my mother has been involved in issues in the state of New Jersey all of her life. So that's the root I was raised under. And if you are raised in a Black church, you're into social justice, whether you know it or not, because there's always some type of thing going on in the church. So my background is that. So I'm gonna just jump in and then get ready to share, authors, okay? Oh, I don't see color. Please, for the love of God, stop saying that. You do see color. You're supposed to, as per direct orders from the universe. Diversity is intentional, magical, natural, and necessary. Our issues are not color. It's the minute someone decides the tulip is better than any other flower. All lilies are inferior. Every hydrangea is unworthy, or roses are only fit to be 1/3 of a flower. Even though you didn't make up these very real, stupid human lies, if you don't actively fight them, you become part of the problem. Imagine looking at nature, flowers, birds, all of that, and saying, you don't see color. See how silly that sounds? Instead, tell the world how vital, beautiful, and equal we all are in our own natural state. Not equal in size, color, or stature, equal in our right to flourish anywhere, to share resources, to reach our full potential, to contribute, invent, make mistakes, make discoveries, and seek out the same love, joy, and promise of life that you do. You're intelligent, gorgeous, and necessary in the grand scheme of things, and so are we, just the way we were born. African, Latina, Native, Asian, woman, LGBT, differently abled, whatever. There is no debating that, no ranking, no caste system allowed, period. See color, celebrate diversity, help end racism and every other ugly ism that walks in along with it. 2 pages, never a good thing. I can't, oh no, sorry, sticking together. That's it, okay, that was my piece. All right, so who would like to share and tell us what inspired you to write this particular piece?
I can go.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Now, what inspires you to write this? I can't wait. Are we gonna do that before or after?
Well, I'll do the poem first, and then I'll tell you
Go
what
for it.
inspired the piece.
Go.
And I'll let you know, my mother, it wasn't us, but I still love you.
Okay.
You only get the inside joke. if
Yeah,
you're
oh, I
part of
know
it.
it.
Okay. All right. Hashtag downtown LA is not racist. The black guy is masturbating on 6th again. These homeless people are getting ridiculous. There's this homeless program up north where they nicely ship them away for programs. It is really nice. I don't know if happy adverbs can make an internment camp sound okay. Melina just cares about Latinos. Melina hates white people. She doesn't have a bike. She didn't go to the bike meeting. We need more cops. We need more security. Another guy masturbating. I have a picture. I got up at 4 a.m. and I caught him. My dog needs a place to run. Can we make this park private? We are bringing back Broadway. Those businesses weren't real. You know what we mean. I find your accusations that I'm racist offensive. Here we go again with the race card. You people on the race card. My name is James T. Hunt, and I'm black, and I'm here to let you know that Bob isn't racist. That black homeless guy is out of control. No one's even talking about race. Obama is the best president ever. This time, it's an Asian guy masturbating on 7th. Did not know they could be homeless. I thought that was a black thing. What? I'm not being offensive, just honest. I went with an Asian lady once. She was real Americanized and talked too much. I had to break up with her. I'm not racist. The Irish were the first slaves. I'm not Irish, but I could be. There you go again with the race card. Race is relevant here. Your accusations of racism are why people are masturbating all over the place. And I voted for Obama. I told you that. So, that piece is inspired by 2 things. I was in downtown Los Angeles with kind of like this artist poetry crew of people. We were all creative, we were all radical, we were all anarchists, and we had this place, The Smell, which is a punk bar in downtown LA. And I gave money to a guy, a black man, who was homeless. 50% of the homeless population in Los Angeles are African American. And I gave it to him, and the people were like, don't do that because he'll come back again. And then another incident, when you grow up and buy a house in an area where people used to live in, and you kind of feel like you can just take their property and things, you usually start a Facebook group where you complain about these people. And this is from this Facebook group. It was called the Downtown LA Neighborhood Group. And all they did was like make comments about, I saw a black guy, but they didn't call it that. I saw a urban person. It had all these kind of like euphemisms. And so it was me kind of critiquing this neoliberal bullshit, and I wanted like them to see it and be like totally like offended. Like I wanted them to kind of like go like, yes, I am talking about you, yes. But in a way I want to be funny too. So that's what inspired me.
You succeeded.
That's what it was inspired by.
How about the other side of the table? You have something you want to share?
I was looking at something in my next book that I'm releasing. I'll tell you about what inspired it now. All right, so has anyone seen the movie 42? The Jackie Robinson movie? All right, so when this came out, I didn't watch it when it first came out, but I seen the movie. Now when I write, any writers in the audience? Any writers? All right, so as you know, as sometimes you write, you don't necessarily write it as soon as you feel it or are inspired. It could probably take you up to a year to finish something. And when I started writing this piece, it was from a scene I seen in the Jackie Robinson movie where he was at the bat, and the dad was saying, "Go back home, N-word, go back home, we don't want you here." And the son was looking at him and everyone around him, and then the son eventually stood up and started to repeat what the father was saying. And that pretty much inspired this piece, and it's called Racism on Repeat. My father is an American hero. My hero. I followed him before I was able to walk on my own twos. I too fought for this country. My father was perfect. He did everything a man was supposed to. He was a hard worker. He always respected and loved my mother and did everything he could for his family until he couldn't lift a finger anymore. Something that he did that still sticks with me is how he would wash his face in the mornings. He would wet his face with lukewarm water, lather his face with soap and rinse it off with cold water in that order. I'm 63 now and I still do it. Same soap, same routine. My father never did anything wrong. He taught me the difference between right and black. My father taught me that we are the best gifts on earth and that we shouldn't have to share anything with black people. Not schools, not jobs, not bathrooms. My father's ways are still present, and I will do everything to keep my father alive, especially since he put his life on the line to make sure this country has everything it has now. Our blood glows across the flag like it did on our faces in the war. As we stare with our cold blue eyes and blank smiles, we will never accept you, black people. I am America. We gave you people enough time to leave, to flee, to breathe. And you got the nerve to say that you can't breathe, as if we ever took our feet off of your necks. And you think a microphone would help anyone hear you? I've watched my father blatantly tell you people to go back to where you came from, as if you try your best to fit in. You are nothing more than entertainment. So go ahead, sing, dance, play instruments, play ball, a world star. I know my father is rolling in his grave, so whether there was a black man in the White House as the president, he would smack the blood out of my mouth if I finished that sentence. No coincidence that many young black people are being targeted, and you ask if it is hunting season, but it is. And the million-dollar question is, how many more examples does there have to be to see why this is happening? Maybe you didn't get the messenger app, so you're not able to read the messages. But think about it. Since we can't touch the black man in the White House, we will take out any of the partisans who are worth the dirt they walk on in my father's honor. For America, I will gladly wash my face with the same soap and tell these black people to go back to where they came from, the same way our father's father did. Why are you looking at me like that? We're only doing the same things you do to each other. So why are you mad at us? I thought we was doing you people a favor. So it's not too long ago that I realized that I was writing I write a lot of persona pieces to illustrate someone else's story. However, what I didn't notice is that I was writing monologues, and that's how the play came about. A lot of the poems that I wrote in my first book is a lot of monologues. 80% relationships, so to speak, but I write from other people's perspective, and I'm the killings that was happening, like with Trayvon and all of the young black men, that was Eric, everything was going on. I actually wrote the poem on Christmas Eve when I finished it. And my wife and the mother was in the kitchen. They was like, "Hey, you fine?" I'm like, "Leave me alone right now. Let me finish this." And when I finished it, I didn't want to read it to them because they was all happy. So I didn't want to change the mood in the house. But I shared it with my wife when we were home, and she was like, "That's what you was doing?"
Well, a lot of times writing is cathartic for us. Some of the anger or pain or joy that we feel, we have to get it out onto the paper. And that's one of the things that resistance is appealing to me, because we're, pushing back against something, whether it's the pain of a broken heart or whether it's the pain of a broken America. So I thank you for that. Pamela?
So I'm going to read a poem called Chicken Little Was Right, and what inspired me was just trying to go beyond the environmental devastation that we see all around us almost constantly. So this is called Chicken Little Was Right. The sky is lost. When it fell from our minds, it began falling out of the air like an unused movie set. No one seemed to notice. Myth of moon, of sun, and stars lie crumpled on the sidewalk like the dingy flyers of a Chinese restaurant. The sky is falling! The sky is falling! Unfortunately, few are struck by it. Orion panhandles on the West Side Highway. Can you spare a quarter, buddy? I'm trying to get home. Venus rises out of the Hudson on a sludge scow, dark rings around her ankles. In the suburbs of Jersey, a fat cumulus cloud sits in the intersection of Valley Brook and Ridge Road. A tow truck is sent for. At the corner, a flock of geese cross at the green. The remaining constellations and planets click like angry beads. The sky is crashing. Its blue glue held fast for a while, like the green glue of forests, the epoxy of animals. So I just wanted to take that childhood story and just sort of revamp it and give it that sort of irony.
Before I share the poem I'm about to share, I'll tell you a little bit about the origins of it. It comes from a couple of strands in terms of my experiences as an educator, the lens in which I tried to write, looking at intersectionality in terms of how womanhood gets constructed historically and globally, and a really good friend two good friends who impacted the shaping of this poem. So in terms of my experiences as an educator, I've been a high school English teacher, assistant professor, instructional coach, and also an educational consultant, working in suburban schools in upstate New York and also working in New York City. And some of the most interesting experiences I've had with principals who have been very resistant, and resistant in the context of when I would come to their school sites, they would only want me to work with the teachers of color who were working with the children, or the students rather, who were the most problematic. And so with all the years I had spent in terms of education and using education as a vehicle for being an agent of change, it was interesting, I'm saying in quotation marks, to be marginalized just so. That's one lens. The other lens in terms of my writing as a poet, as I tried to examine womanhood globally, whether how womanhood gets defined in the context of certain procedures such as infibulation or genital mutilation, how it gets constructed in the sense of matrimony. In the case in poem I'll share a little bit later is about in India how dowry is used as a tool of extortion, and in the event of certain marital promises not being fulfilled, in some instances women are set on fire as a punishment for that. So that's another lens. The third lens is I became a mother late in life. I had my first child at the age of 40. And many of my friends had already had children, older, and I was coming into it quite new. But I have two friends that have really helped to shape who I'm becoming as a mother. One of them is my friend Tiffany Gardner, who left working as an attorney and working for a nonprofit organization to be a stay-at-home mom, and gave the model to me of motherhood as an act of social justice. And that being in the sense of trying to use your motherhood as a vehicle for providing an equal playing field for your children, particularly with her having two sons. And now I have two sons. And another person who's also impacted the poem I'm about to share is Ghana.
Don't say me.
Yes. She got it in, I was going to put her on blast. She'll tell you, I'm the quiet, shy one, but I know, in love. But it was an interesting experience how I came to meet Ghana. And it was just, it's just divine intervention, where somehow we have a mutual friend, and Ghana had posted an annual party that she has at her house. And through this mutual friend, Ghana had sent out an invite, and I don't know how we exactly started talking, but Ghana sent out the invitation. And this was at the time when as Elijah was saying, Trayvon Martin had just recently lost his life. And that's the time when I just had my first son. And I was very torn up about this. What am I going to be able to do to protect my son? What am I going to be able to do as a mother, as a black woman, as an African American, to keep him safe? So my husband and I showed up at Ghana's event with our first son. And Ghana introduced herself, gave hugs and kisses, put Keith on her hip, talked a little bit more, and went right in the house. And there was just such a sense of relief, because I met another mother that in just that one gesture knew what that struggle was like, and was like, I got you, and took to my son as if it was her own son. I mean, I'm about to cry about that now, but that gave me such peace, because my baby found home in another mother. And my second baby found a home too. When years later I had my second son, Ghana, we showed up, Kerwin and I were trying to get a little something to eat. Ghana took Maceo. Maceo traveled somewhere for an hour, came back to us, and it was like, well, we actually had a full stomach after that. But the point being is that those are all the things that have helped to shape and inform the poem I share called The Dreams of Brown Mothers. The dreams of brown mothers murmur and hunt for the void of dark blue, the forgotten, untrue, disbelieved pocket where their male kin and children are snatched captive, to rehearse again the breaking of bones and bloom to fit unnatural, untimely graves, earth, unearthed, too early, too soon. Too many lay assembled in unholy work, becoming food for roots, hungrily groaning, growing strange fruit, branches hanging with circumcised leaves. But we mothers war, reopening wounds, opening our wounds to the dawn, despite risk of recruitment as witness to this perverse turn of cycle, again with hands up, from churning, blistering, soaking in prayer, rebel word by word, day by day, child by child, teen by teen, man by man. Then swallow. For in this rebellious work, we must look always to the eyes of our male kin and new cubs, risk heartbreak and spine snap to love the unspared. Risk. The front door will someday be answered to learn that the routine commute to work, returning home with bottle of iced tea and Skittles, enjoying cold crunch of snowballs inside sculpting young hands at the playground. Music played and enjoyed too loudly. Lucy sold loosely, breathing, yielded counterfactual judgment, a forgivable offense, a mistake that has claim again and other. This dual understanding of brown mothers amazes me, still willing to give birth, brazen in bearing children of earth, housing spirits of high, ever enduring, bearing risk, to heal, to know, to believe.
I get you later about shouting me out. Now everybody knows I put babies on my hip. That's a trick, girl. Right there, just walk through the house with them. All right, we have 20 minutes left, so we're gonna spend 10 minutes, so each poet can share another piece. So have that in mind, pick something that's relatively short and easy. And then we'll have 10 minutes of question and answer from the group, so that gives you time to think about what you'd like to ask these talented. Okay. So, Elijah, you gonna start us off?
Not really.
I mean, if you're not ready, we get somebody.
I was
ready.
actually, because all right, so, you know you have your parents in the room, or first project creators. I'm working on my next book, which is, I guess, the second coming of my first book, which is my first baby. And as we speak, I'm being inspired to finish writing this piece that I was inspired formerly by my students. Last year I was a full-time sub, particularly subbing so I can do the play around the world. You know, as a full-time teacher, you can't do that. So instead of getting in trouble like, you missed 20 days in February. So I became a sub last year. And I was sitting in the classroom, and I came in about March at a school in Newark, and the students inspired this poem. It's called They Lack. It's not finished yet, but I'm thank you for really inviting me. Like, I really appreciate it. Being a writer, I'm also a publisher. I publish books as well. But this book was my first book that I've ever published. And the sales that I've sold, I'm hoping that it gets the same love for this next book, for this one. So it's called They Lack. I wish they knew the underlying secrets they were engulfed with. Broken to the core with no content, bruised from the ones who birthed them. So why would they believe me when I tell them that I love them? It has to be difficult to raise yourself and still not know what life is. Everyone else in this world has a prison mentality. Watch your back and think for self only. If we solely had this type of mindset, we would eventually have no community left, and that's where it lies. Respect is missing. I didn't think this thing existed. iPhones, iTunes, they're doomed, too connected to the social elites that reality is influenced through beats. Transparency spews through the tunes I speak, hoping I can share my hopes and aspirations, but sometimes I get weak. Tired of the same frustrations Dr. King walked the streets with. Harriet Tubman had freedom on a trail, and some slaves felt more comfortable living in hell. Why would some choose the failing route? Questions I ask myself as I sit behind my desk, as if I'm not making a difference. Coming to a place, they are the reasons I do this day after day, because the pay is questionable. But them, my students, I'm trying to understand why their guards are up, why soldiers surround their gates. And that's it so far. So.
This is going away from the environment, and what inspired me to write this was George W. Bush back in the day. And of course, the power of femaleness and our part. So it's a gynocentric kind of poem.
But wait, before you read it, isn't it funny how things change?
Oh,
Now you're like, a Bush presidency.
so this is go vote Bush, and this is for George W. And when I did write this, my husband thought I was crazy, but he's not a poet, so we could write this. Okay. If it was my Bush running the world, the only thing we'd have to worry about would be eating too much sugar or sitting around in wet bathing suit bottoms. instead of cracking heads or patriots cracking down, I'd see that each household had a tea bag of powder arco in every pot and a jar of acidophilus in every fridge. The itch around the bikini line could pose problems across party lines, but the new world order would be diversified, multicultural, as well as multi-seasonal. The shrub-like spread of the New Jersey winter bush or the thin, sunny spread of the Brazilian fir would be tenable as the clean-shaven all over America. War would be superfluous as a shotgun wedding. Babies of any race, creed, color, or angelic affiliation would be welcome to exit my sacred space, exist in my arms without the fear of a random burst of smart bullets, the new napalm of a Mark 77 firebomb blazing in, or depleted uranium radiating with its half-life of 4.5 billion years. Peace would not need a super absorbent tampon to stop all the bleeding. Ask not what my vagina can do for you, but what you can do for my vagina. Now what we see with the Me Too movement, and it's always relevant.
Random violence. My great-great-grandfather came to Los Angeles in 1890 after taking the opportunity of slitting his father's throat in an act of random violence in New Orleans. His father, my great-great-great-grandfather, had the biggest and most luxurious house in the Garden District in New Orleans. Some people call it a plantation. America has always been a violent country, and Los Angeles has always been a violent town. It exists owing to murder and lies. But murders and lies opens the door for opportunities for random violence. In 1900, my great-great-grandfather opened a bar, and out of it he filled, as he called it, opportunities. Some people called him a loan shark. Some people said my great-great-grandfather was a violent man. My great-grandfather continued running the bar and the business of opportunities and then gave it to my grandfather. My grandfather used these opportunities to send my mother to UCLA, and she became the first legitimate member of the Molyneux family. But I always liked my grandfather. I would hang out with him in the bar, help him clean his gun, help him balance his books. One day, we were walking up Central Avenue, and a man walked up to us and attempted to grasp his opportunities. He told my grandfather he wanted his money. He seemed to have a gun in his pocket. My grandfather gave him an opportunity and asked him if he was sure, and did the young man know who he was, and did the young man see he was with his favorite granddaughter. And the young man said, "Give me your fucking money, old man." My grandfather took out his silver gun, a gun I had pointed at my sister's head a week prior in a game of cops and robbers, and shot him in the arm. The young man said with disbelief, "You shot me." And my grandfather said, "You tried to rob me, and you better run before I make it so you can't run anymore." The young man ran away. I guess he didn't have a gun, and my grandfather looked at me and said, "Beak, what did you learn?" He called me Beak because my name was Lark, which is a bird, and birds have beaks, and I talk a lot. I said that if you walk outside, that people will try to rob you. And he said, "No, that's not the lesson. The lesson is, if you rob people, you will get shot." At the bar the following week, while drinking the root beer my grandfather made for me on Friday after school, a murder in South Central was reported on the television. They flashed a picture of a young man who was laid out on the sidewalk with yellow tape surrounding his body filled with bloody holes. The reporter said, in a case of random violence in South Central Los Angeles, a young man was killed. I looked over at my grandfather from the bar stool, and he smiled and asked me, did I like my treat? And I smiled that and nodded my head, yes. And that's the day I learned that you don't pull a gun on a gangster unless you plan on killing him. And there's no such thing as random violence.
This poem is Culture is Torture. Her hand she folds and holds tightly. Clenching her teeth does not console the shrinking stitches. She wishes feeling as when making happy playing clap-clap with Intozaki and Tashi, teeth and legs dusty from running in circles. Seeing something different than aging wall of hut. Instead, the dewy dawn, leaning into its warming sun. But this last smell, this new smell, this final smell, is thick myrrh and dark dream. She straddles weakly the damp corner between her knees, smelling slaughter. Her clitoris stolen, never to be grown. Her clitoris murdered when just sown. Her clitoris soon to be buried, a treasure unknown. Her clitoris, now limp and unsown, withers away in the pestle, awaiting the others.
Before we get to questions and answers, I just want to touch on something you mentioned. Artists are everywhere, and sometimes we don't know that a person you're dealing with at your job is actually an artist. It is a hard world sometimes. Sometimes as artists, we choose to work a 9-to-5 job and do our art on the side, and people think it's a hobby, but to us it's not a hobby, it's our lifeline. We just haven't gotten to the point where it can pay our mortgage, so we have to keep the 9-to-5 until we figure out a way to make it do our mortgage. And that's a real thing. And sometimes there are people who are artistic within their jobs. Teachers and even doctors, and just a million ways of being artistic. It's really an important thing to nourish the arts. Poetry and writing being just one of those ways, but this for us is the air that we breathe. So we thank you for really giving life to that and life to that. And so let's just give these poets a round. So much of ourselves and our most intimate thoughts sometimes. So it's really putting ourselves out there. So thank you for that. So do we have any questions for any of these poets? Any questions? Because if not, I'll answer. Yes.
How do you get past what exactly you said, exposing yourself and being vulnerable to strangers?
For me, I just, I think the thing is that a lot of people who are artists, they don't have that same kind of filter. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't be an artist if you care about that, but I'm just one of those people, I'm very free, I'm naked, I just do I say what I say. Even people are talking about code switching and stuff like that, and I tell people, I'm like, really, for me, I have this thing about me that I wish I could be like, sometimes I wish I could control myself, and I'm like very lucky because I have friends that'll be like, stop talking. And I'll just go off. I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Some of those same
Yeah.
things.
But I don't know, like, man, I don't know how to say, like, how do you stop that barrier? But I think the more you share, the more you forget that you're not supposed to. So you gotta practice doing it if that's a thing.
So I worked in human resources for over 20 years, and human resources, at least in the role that I had in human resources, is all about not sharing and being equal and being even all the time. I had certain rules. I never wore a button-down shirt because I didn't want anything popping out. I never cursed. I never talked politics. I never, if you invited me out, I would never go out to your house because, as my boss would remind me, you may have to fire that person tomorrow. So you don't want to be at their house and being really good friends with them. So I know the opposite. I know how to wear the mask and just smile. So in my personal life, when I'm not at work, you cannot stop me from cursing. I am like, you cannot stop me from shit. Like, and my husband, my friends are like, did you hear what you just said? I don't give a good damn. So I think from just having those dual lives, for me, it's like time and place for me, because I wouldn't do it in my work life. but you couldn't stop me in my personal life. I'm not Elijah, you wanted to say
Yeah, I
something?
mean,
Yeah, it's an
I
explosion.
can agree with Tika.
Tika.
I'm sorry.
Tika.
Okay.
But yeah, I can agree with her as far as just really not having a filter. As far as writing, and I've never been shy, so that's something that just never changed with me. I think we have probably the same friends as well. Like they would tell me like, bro, like chill, and I'm like, no, this person needs to hear what I gotta say. So I think that's what it is, and I don't mind sharing anything. My wife sometimes checks me, like she feels the need to, and I'm like, hold on, baby, give me a second. I'm not gonna give it all to them. I just feel like if one person does something, they need to know how it feels, especially if it's wrong, and that's sometimes how I feel when I throw a bomb on someone. Through my
And
writing.
I'm also, one of the things that I find challenging as a writer is, everything I write is not about me. It really isn't.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to remind the people that are closest to me, that's not about you, or that's not about that situation. I remember, right, because you see other things that you want to share. Like, for instance, when Trayvon Martin died, my daughter was the same age and she sobbed about it. And I, of course, thought, what if I lost my child? What if I was a mom who lost her child at 17, years of age? And you start thinking, and you could write a piece based on that, even though it did not happen to you. So one time I wrote a poem about women's issues and how women are seen and how frustrating it can be sometimes to be a woman in this world. And it was based on a comment that a friend made who happens to be in this room. She made a totally innocent comment to me about how her brother was treated one way in the family, even though he was younger than her, and how she was treated, even though she was older. The girl, life revolved around the son in the family. And we were in the car together, and she just mentioned that. And she wasn't angry about it. It was just a matter-of-fact thing. Well, I went home and I wrote this piece, and I was like, fire, like, and down and down and down, and parents don't know, and then at work, and then I come home, and then my husband and the kids come. I mean, just fire, like about women's roles in the world. And I posted it, and people inbox me, is everything okay? Are you all right? Are you good? And I was like, yeah, I was just, so you put on this, like, persona of that anger in the world, and you, for that moment, become its mouthpiece, and you bring forth that emotion, but half the time I'm chilling, it's cool.
You're the unacknowledged legislator.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, also too, I critique myself a lot, so I think that makes it so when I do say things, people know that I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I do stuff, and I kind of like I talk about myself a lot, like things that I did this horrible thing. And I think that makes it easier when I do say things about people that people are like, oh yeah, well, she's just not perfect either. She admitted this.
That's vital, I think, to, sometimes I have problems with leaders who don't share their true selves and try to come off as perfect because they don't touch the youth and touch their peers in the way that they really powerfully could, unless they said, I used to be there, I've done that, I understand because. And then you kind of, sync with them a little bit better. I think it would be much more effective. We don't have to tell it all, and as a parent, I'm always balancing that line. Do I want to tell them every single thing I did?
Oh boy, I know that.
Close to it. There's not that much I haven't, because I want them to understand that, this is not as bad as it sounds, or you can come back from this, or what have you. So it's always about, how much you're sharing. Do we have another question? Yes.
Hi. So I think that for a lot of young people, there's pressure to make any art that they create have some kind of commercial value because they do feel like they need, right? If you make something, you want to be able to pay your mortgage. But I think the difference between art that takes risks and art that has commercial value is you can go so deep with art that can take risks, but part of the risk is not being able to make a living out of doing it. And I just wonder if we have enough community spaces or educational spaces that encourage young people to make art because the art really matters, and not to think that everything they make has to have a commercial value. And do you know what I mean?
I do know
Do we
what you
have
mean.
spaces that really encourage young people to
My
do that?
quick answer is no, we don't. Not for lack of those that try. there are places and spaces of people and institutions that try. I do not think that art is valued enough as a piece of education. And there became a point in America, because it wasn't always this packaged, I won't say it didn't always exist, but it was always this package as to the capitalism that we are supposed to consume and the way in which it's supposed to happen. So unless you are doing it to get the big house, the car, the wife, and the 4 kids, then it doesn't have value. So I think that we miss a lot in not giving young people just room to scream, breathe, be, create, whatever.
Well,
And
another thing too, I think is important is that, art for art's sake. And especially for people of color, for African Americans, for Latinos, people won't allow you to do art for art's sake. And, I think that's, my book is kind of fun, and I think that the radical part of my book is the fact that I'm not fitting into this box. I'm not fitting into this, well, you meet the qualifications of this grant because you wrote about this topic, and this topic. And I think it's almost kind of like, why can't, Black people write, do poetry, do art, and not be connected to, while the education part is a component, but why can't we just be artists? Why is it only people who can just be artists are just white men? That's something I have a huge problem with, that if you're, even in different art festivals or writing festivals, if we're not meeting some kind of social justice component, they don't want us there. And I find that highly offensive when I go to events and I feel like I'm here to meet a check mark. I'm not an artist, I'm not a poet, I'm not a writer, I'm just a Black person, so they can say, can I get the $10,000 from my grant? That's an issue too. I don't know if I can answer the question.
we're talking about it all. Just want to make sure if we have any other questions before we, yes.
That's not a question. I was just so moved by, we heard this poem about kind of pussy power, right? Like the potential of the vagina, and then your poem was about cutting the clitoris off, right? And I was like, well, that's why they want to cut it off, right? Because God forbid we unleash the power of the divine female. So I'd like you couldn't have timed it any better to have this.
That's why we have
Maybe this is more of a romantic question, but I'm a poet too, and I'm kind of torturing myself lately because I do always kind of the same mistake that I'm sometimes too much of a poet, a romantic poet, and then totally freak out my muses. So I don't know if it happens to you too, and if you could give me personal advice on that.
What's your name?
Federica.
Say it again.
Federica?
Federica?
Yeah.
Yeah, you are you. You are not too much of anything.
Did you say
So
you
you need to be you.
You say you freak out with your muses?
Yeah, I'm too poetic.
I don't think that's ever bad.
Yeah. Well, as far as you're trying to be published as well, are you writing to what is your goal?
I'm a lawyer during the day, and I'm a poet at night. So I have double life. And I'm just doing poetry for myself. I have a poetry project, magazine book,
Okay.
so that I want to make published.
Okay.
But yeah.
Unless you're outside of your muse's window and reading every poem that you write, then it's not too much. That would be too much. But if you're not doing that, it's not too much. Sometimes we just get inspired, and that vein is an artery, and it just pours forth a lot of words, and that's okay. So you should never feel like, is this too much? It's absolutely not too much. It's you, and you got to get it out. And you need to totally 100% get it out. Someone broke my heart once years ago, and it must be a book. But I had to get it all out. It was like poison I had to suck out. It was toxic. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing, but it's never too much. So let's just get that straight right there. It's never too much, because you're not You know, like I said, unless you're scaring that person by showing up in the middle of the night, reading your poem, it's not too much, trust me.
Maybe I got good to that.
Yeah.
Keep writing.
It's good to have a muse.
Yeah.
It's good to have, sometimes, you know, something, a best friend does. I have a best friend going through a lot right now, and I've probably written 8 poems about her and her situation. And I didn't share it at first because I thought, well, that's weird. She's going through a lot and I'm writing it, you know, so maybe, and then I sent her one and she was like, you had me crying over here. Oh my God. So I sent her the rest and she was like, girl, you know, sometimes it's like you need to hear that someone else understands some of your pain or joy or whatever you're going through. So I think the words that we share, even with ourselves, are so important. Sometimes you write something and it was for you. You needed to hear that. So it's not too much. I'm just saying, it's not too much. Yes.
I just wanted to thank each of you for reading, and you know, I'm just reminded of the incredible luxury of artists reading their material present. It's a real joy, and I want to thank you. And
Thank you.
I know it's not easy sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even with myself, like the racism or the Pete poem, when I shared it with my uncle, he said, "You gonna read that out loud, people?" I was like, "Yeah." People have thoughts, so and that's exactly what poets are. We're all poets, you know. Whether you wrote a poem or not, you know. One of my friends in college, she wrote a letter to her boyfriend, and I read it out like a poem, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm a poet!" You know, so as long as you can orchestrate your thoughts and put it on paper, that's a poem. You're a poet. I did want to have it. I want to let you guys know we are doing a play on April 12th at New Jersey City University in JCU. That's 6 o'clock. That's on a Thursday. So if you guys are from Jersey and you're not doing anything on that day, please come. It's free, and you can see why the world has been asking us to still do this since 2012.
And on that note, we're going to end, but I just want each poet to quickly share if they are going to be somewhere soon or doing something soon. Just let the audience know the date and time so they can participate in that.
Well, there's another thing I'm doing at Rutgers on April 10th. They asked me to come up with, they found out about the place, came to see it, and they wanted me to produce something with the 3 highest crimes in Newark. Robbery, homicide, and rape. And me, myself, and, well, I said me, myself. Me, Jamal J. Skills-Hennett, and another poet by the name of Queen from Newark. Us 3 are putting together a performance you will not see anywhere else. April 10th, 6 o'clock. That is free as well. And also it's about mental illness and a lot of other things. But please come out if you're not busy. That's that Tuesday and Thursday of April. See me twice in a week. And for my books, you can purchase them today. I accept debit and credit, or you can.
I got you. We won't holler. Yes, we won't.
If you can't get them today, you can purchase them on eBay. That's pretty much where else I sell them. Missing pages out of my life. It takes a child to raise a village. In 2 weeks, and my children book Letters Make Words.
Yes, if you are available next week, Saturday, March 24th, myself and the phenomenal person I was telling you about, Carla Cherry, we're going to be doing a poetry showcase as well as book signing, and we're also going to be there featuring the Jelly Soul. That's going to be at Adinkra House, 26 Pleasant Avenue in Montclair. Doors will open at 5:30. Performance begin at 6:30. You can purchase tickets in advance through Eventbrite, or for $10, you can purchase tickets at the door for $15, and a portion of the proceeds will also be donated to charity. If you like also, my book is available here for purchase, and we can talk afterwards. And also, if you want to keep up with latest events in terms of performances, I also have business cards available as well.
All right, so unless anyone else has
On April 19th, I will be at Creativity Caravan here in Montclair. It's going to be Teka Lark live. I'll actually be, I'm going to be recording an actual vinyl album, but like using it, I'm gonna do the whole book, and we're gonna have like drinks and fun, so I can have audience, ambiance, and all that stuff. So go to Creativity Caravan to see about that. In Montclair, my book's available on Amazon and through Word Palace Press, my publisher, and also Creativity Caravan. They'll be there soon. I've run out, but they'll be there soon.
I'll be reading at Bluefield College on April 20th at 7 o'clock in the Cyber Art Room. Also be at the Poets House September 7th from 6 to 7. That's in New York towards way downtown towards the Statue of Liberty. I'll be there with another poet. It's a talk and poetry reading called Poets and Publishing. We're both in the publishing realm also. And you could buy my book here or on Amazon or at my publisher's site, which is 3 Mile Harbor Press.
And what time is it?
Which one?
What time is it? April 20th.
Oh, April 20th, I think that's at 6 to 7.
And my name is Ghana Imani Hilton. You can follow me on social media at Ghana Imani. It has anything I'm doing with poetry or moderating or any event that I'm hosting pretty much is there. I just want to thank you on behalf of all of these talented poets and writers for coming and spending time with us. I hope you enjoyed it. Their books are for purchase now. They will sign them for you, take a cute picture. You know y'all can do the selfie. We can do all of that. We would love to see that. If you do share pictures, put it online. Make sure you tag Montclair Literary Festival as well so they know how much you enjoyed it. And thank you so much for coming.
What's